Hi, everybody. Dan Ullman, Ashley Mayu, taking a look at the first leg of a 20-cent pick five at Woodbine on a spectacular Sunday afternoon of racing. This is the Grade 1 EP Taylor. Let's take a look at the field for race number 7. A mile and a quarter on the turf. This is for fillies and mares. It could certainly produce one or two or more horses into the Breeders' Cup filly and mare turf. And you can go so many different ways in this race, Ashley. Contenders all over the place.
This is a really challenging race. I agree with you. I think top to bottom, it's a competitive event. And I think there's some horses at prices that maybe deserve a long look. I think in terms of trying to figure out maybe a top four in here, I definitely struggled with it because I think there are horses that they come into this race off a good effort and really could step up here, especially at the mile and a quarter distance. So this is a great addition of the EP Taylor.
The third choice in this race, the number one Fev Rover on the morning line, the third choice. She's a grade one winner this year and she has speed. We'll throw up the Timeform US pace projector. She had some trouble last year in this race when trying to come from off the pace, and it seems like they've wanted to get forward with her in her recent starts. She can make the lead, but if someone else wants it, she can sit as well.
Yeah, she is versatile. I do think from the inside draw, she should be pretty forwardly placed. I wouldn't be shocked to see her in the lead, but as you mentioned, she doesn't have to be on the lead. And I'm curious to see what her antics will be. I think last time out, she's a little geared up prior to the race and her hand was forced, but we know that she has the versatility to sit when needed.
She made her seasonal debut going a one-turn mile in the Nassau, and she looked super that day. And that prompted Mark Casse to try two big names in the Diana, both trained by Chad Brown in Italian and White Beam. Fev Rover set a pretty good trip down inside behind these two horses. She gets to the outside and she really tries her hardest in the stretch.
I thought she looked really good here. I know she ends up being third best, but you mentioned the two names in front of her. They're certainly big names to say the least. And I think this was a nice launching point for her. We know what she was able to do in the Beverly D. She was very impressive. And last time out, a little bit of a head scratcher, not what we'd have expected from her, but she's certainly capable of a rebound performance.
When you see a race like the Canadian, is it something that really worries you, maybe from the pre-race antics on to the entire race itself? Because she has had a pretty hard campaign.
She has had a hard campaign. I mean, it does, leave me with a couple of questions why she was so geared up. Obviously, she's no stranger to Woodbine. She spent a lot of time there in 2022. But to me, also coming back in this spot and just, racing her just a month later, I think maybe they know what happened last time out. She could, as I said, she could really rebound.
There's some angles here for the two. Amazing Grace. She's getting Lasix for the first time for a super trainer and Christophe Clement. And I think she has some excuses for her last two races. Two starts back in the Glens Falls. It looked like she was going to try to commence a run in between horses entering the third of three turns, got shuffled back, and then had too much to do. And then last time out, this race, the Grade 2 Flower Bowl, it was just a paceless event. Parnack went to the front and went a mile in almost 144. Amazing Grace did pretty well to make it relatively close at the wire.
I thought she raced really well, all in all. And I think looking at her performances, yes, she's needed more. But I wonder off of this performance alone, kind of looking at this mile and a quarter distance, we haven't seen her go this short in quite some time. Wonder if this might be the key for her.
It just seems like she's been a bit unlucky. Even three starts back, they threw her in against males in the 2 mile race. She ran really well. That distance might have been too far. She got wired in a slow paced Sheepshead Bay 4 starts back. So 10 to 1 seems like a price on a horse that might not have been able to show her best stuff in her last few races. Skims comes up for the great Shug McGahee. This horse was second last time out in the Canadian. It was her first start off of a short layoff, but she was just no match for Moira that day.
She wasn't. Moira was much the best. I thought it was a good effort, though, off of that little bit of a freshening. I like that she's got that nice work coming into this race. I guess the thing that I look at it is her win two back. Yes, she beat Atomic Blonde. She made it look easy, but she hasn't been able to necessarily keep up with some of the other fillies and mares she's going to face.
It seems the trainer Charlie Appleby and Godolphin, they win just about everything up at Woodbine, and they have the number 4 with the Moonlight, who is a filly that is just all class. She looked good in the States in 2022, winning the Saratoga Oaks. She looked super to me in her 2 races in Dubai, and in her first and only start in North America in 2023, she caught the aforementioned In Italian in the Jenny Wiley, and when In Italian gets to the lead and relaxes up front, she's hard to catch.
She is hard to catch, and I thought this filly ran very well in the Jenny Wiley. Obviously, since then, disappointed and has been on the shelf since May, but we know the talent is certainly there. I love that every time she's come over to North America. She's run her eyeballs out, to say the least, and has had some really big performances. And I think the big thing is the mile and a quarter distance. Look at her record at it. She's been pretty solid at the mile and a quarter distance. So if you're willing to back her off the layoff, she's very live here.
Another getting Lasix for the first time. But does that 5-month layoff worry you, especially coming off a subpar effort for her? Although maybe you could make the excuse last time out, it was softer footing than she liked, and she was really keen early.
Doesn't concern me, just knowing we see those breaks in the past. She's been ready to roll, and it's not that she's, been second or third in those races. She's won off the layoff before. So I think if Charlie Appleby is sending this one to Woodbine, there's some confidence there.
The 5 is Aspen Grove, and this is an extremely talented 3-year-old filly. Let's watch her North American debut, the Belmont Oaks. I liked what she did at a very big price in this race. She's covered up in behind horses in the European style. She's going to get the split, and once she sees daylight, she shoots right on through and wins. A very quality edition of the Belmont Oaks. And last time out in the Saratoga Derby, another situation, a little keyed up early and then caught soft ground.
And I thought this was a good ride from Murphy, who's booked to ride once again now up at Woodbine. And I think she's a little bit sneaky in here. I think she's going to offer value. I don't think she's going to take respect from how you kicked it off. She is a 3-year-old filly. She's facing some more seasoned horses who have maybe even more experience in North America. Now, her last out, I was a little disappointed, but she did face some really nice horses. So I think the effort that we showed at the mile and a quarter, it makes her worth a look here.
Moira, the number 6, is a fan favorite, and why not? She parlayed the Woodbine Oaks into the Queen's Plate, and she ran so well in last year's EP Taylor. It was a shame she was disqualified. She had trouble in that race, only missing by a neck. She got back on the beam in a big way last time out. Now, this is a 1-turn mile and an eighth, but Moira's coming widest and fastest, and she dominates them in the Canadian to the tune of a 1:01 Beyer speed figure.
And that outside turf was playing pretty well. And I just think this is what she needed to show after consecutive second place finishes, where I think maybe her connections were scratching their head a little bit. You might say, well, she didn't like the moisture in the turf back in early July. Then her next start, she was just second best. But to see her win like this, I think she made up for all of those seconds.
I know the trainer Chad Brown was frustrated with consumer spending's trip last time out, and you'll see why. Here's the Ballston Spa. She's making a run now in between horses. Joel Rosario really doesn't have anywhere to go, so he's going to try to alter course down to the inside and try to get lucky. And it's fair to say that consumer spending was very, very unlucky.
Yeah, these are one of the things where you watch replays, and trip is difficult. I mean, you look at her, she's full of run, but has no room even up the inside. You can see by Joelle's body language, there was no room. To be beaten by a length, though, in that race, disappointed, but she still tried. I think this is a rebound with a cleaner trip. She can obviously run well, and I think looking at her races up at Monmouth, she's going to go a mile and a quarter. I know it's been a little bit since we've seen her at the distance, but she doesn't have limitations in that sense.
Christophe Clement's also going to send up the number 8, Atomic Blonde. She's a very likable filly. She just hasn't reached the winner's circle in North America yet. 5 top 3 finishes, 3rd in the Canadian last time out. But again, when you watch that race, you just see Moira was just much the best.
Moira was much the best, right? It made things look really easy. I guess my concern with Atomic Blonde would be, yes, this one is 0 for 5 on the year, but I wonder if this is the right distance for her. When we first saw that first start at Gulfstream Park at a mile and a half, she got tired in the end. Then since then, we've only seen her at some shorter distances, even a mile and 3/8. I don't know if she necessarily got the trip that she wanted. So where some horses are going to have to stretch themselves to a mile and a quarter, I wonder if this is the right move from her out of those mile and an eighth races.
Chad Brown also trains the 9 and the 10. We'll start things off with Rocky Sky, and she is a true stayer. She did some very good things when stretched all the way out towards the end of 2022. And her most recent start, her first race off of a very long layoff, she hung in there pretty well to finish second behind California Queen.
Yeah, who she obviously knows quite well, being stablemates. I thought it was a good effort, a good return to the races, and that's something that we see Chad do a lot. He puts horses in these spots off the long layoff, and they usually do run well, which is not the case for all barns and how the program works to get horses back into shape. My concern with her, though, is she's gotten tired in those last 2 now. Maybe she needed a race. I'm not sure about her running style and necessarily how she's going to compete against some of these fresher horses in here.
California Queen was the favorite in the 2021 EP Taylor, and she ran really well that day over softer going. She was only beaten a half length. I think it's fair to say this is a much tougher field than the one she faced in 2021, but at least she's coming into the race in really good form after beating Rocky Sky last time out at a mile and an eighth. She probably needs a slight step forward against this tough group.
I agree. I think looking at where she's been placed in her last 2 at Saratoga, maybe they've been waiting for her to get back into form. And you mentioned 2021 EP Taylor. We haven't seen her much since then. We've only seen her a handful of times, so she's had some setbacks, but I do think it's nice to see her with 3 consecutive races compared to what we saw in that 2022 campaign.
It's really a super race, the EP Taylor. Plus, it kicks off a pick 5 at Woodbine on Sunday. Let's take a look at our top selections. You're going with the Moonlight. Why not? It seems that Appleby wins everything, especially at Woodbine. And I just love this filly's tactical speed.
I think that is key, and I think to me, the 2 that I was torn between were her and Moira, and I love Moira just like everyone else does, but I just thought this filly is gonna be ready to roll off the long layoff, and for me, I know Moira's had a lot of those second place finishes. I just wasn't sure the price we'd get on between the 2 of them, and I think they could be pretty close in odds come post time.
Maybe it's my heart as well as my head. I'm just such a big fan of Moira. I know I'm going to be rooting for her on Sunday. Don't want to take too short a price in such a competitive field. You want to shop around a little bit. Maybe the 5 Aspen Grove still has some upside potential being a 3-year-old filly. I'm curious to see what she does, but what a super race. 4-6-5-7 for Ashley, 6-5-7-10 for me. It's the EP Taylor at beautiful Woodbine on Sunday. Good luck.